Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is a very important video because in Apex Legends, I can't tell you how many times I've seen in comment sections and various videos on how players tend to drop and they never have good drops. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to have better drops and always have a good drop right off the rip. Now, most importantly, the biggest thing is when you're on the dropship, always knowing where to drop, and the reason why I'm using Stormpoint in today's example, and of course, we're in an empty server, so I can keep dropping and showcasing over and over for you examples and how you improve. If you wait in the dropship far too long, the biggest problem that you're going to have waiting in Apex Legends is, well, the early bird catches the worm. My biggest advice here is always tip number one, be very secure and aggressive with what you want. Most teams will start being passive and notice like, hey, if you're really late to a spot, let's say you're dropping Barometer, very popular spot for individuals to land. Now, when individuals land here, while this is a very popular spot, you have to understand where weapons and your loadout is going to be. When you go towards a bend, the downside of hitting a bend is that you may get a loadout there or you may not. Always landing where you know there's going to be a weapon, a loadout is always going to be better than dropping on a bend. So let's say, for example, we drop on this bend and somebody fights. Yeah, you got a prowler, but sometimes you open bins and you may not find what's in there. When you go inside the building specifically, instead, you'll notice that you immediately find loadouts that are more catered to you. If you hit the bends out here, you may not always get what you want or get what you need. So you're always kind of relying on the bit of RNG. And then sometimes when you hit these bends as well, you're not able to necessarily see what gun there is right away. And if your opponent is on the other side of it, then you may not actually be the first one to it. So let's say, for example, I was on this side and my enemy was located on this side. Well, I most likely am not going to be able to pick up that weapon because you don't necessarily know where they're going to spawn. Now, I'm running Lobo just for example off drop, just to kind of show you the power of it whenever you go off drop and you say, hey, there is a site that I see that can definitely help me, or you can start to see armors that are located through the walls. Also, very important tip. So you see, you know, something, oh, purple and shiny, right down in that supply bin. Usually what happens is that people, whenever they go off drop, they forget and realize, hey, I need to fight for the spot that I'm looking for. You need to be the first one to realize when you're dropping to get to that location first and foremost. If you're not first to that location, then you're last. And if you're getting beat to that location, then I promise you, you are not going to have a good time whatsoever trying to get a loadout. So whenever you drop, make sure that you're in the vicinity knowing where your loadout is going to potentially be. So let's drop again and let's talk about this again. Now, in example 2, so what we talked about in the first one is really just being secure about your landing spot in general, right? If you're not first, then you're last. Most of the time, the biggest tip is landing between 600, 700 meters of something. Just kind of a general tip. Somebody was going to comment down below and say, oh, precisely, 625 is the most ideal. Listen, as long as you're dropping first and you're going towards that spot and you're confident, have an option A and an option B where you would like to land. And option A, I'm going to drop right in between here, and I know that there's always a loadout here, but if there's not, there's always armors and big loadouts towards the center of the bins. And most of the time, everyone's trying to take cover in the center, so it's a fallback plan, right? So let's say somebody lands on top of me, and there's no gun, fallback, right? You can either go underneath to grab that, or let's say we want to get closer to our teammates, so we fly over here and go towards the bins. How do I know that there's always armors located in these bins? Well, in general, the percentages are pretty high in where things are located. So in general, these bins tend to have pretty good weapons and pretty good loadouts. But you see now that if you're always dropping, you know where good loot is located. Now, there's also predictable loot that are located in various patterns. So as we run this way, I'm going to highlight some spots. In North Pad, in this upper area, as well as the upper area launch pad, they tend to have marksman weapons. Now, this isn't always the case. Sometimes you might go up there and there might be an, something different like an AR, but most of the time you'll see like a triple take, a charge rifle, a longbow, something along those lines. Now these areas are very specific on the map that are always going to guarantee you loot, and we call this is like a loot cave. Notice how we already see a purple located in these bins. There's always a lot of great loot located here in this area. It takes a little bit of exploring, so the biggest takeaway, as long as you explore like where your options are and where loot is located, I promise you that you're going to pull ahead. The thing is, you got to be very assertive, very dominant, very confident where you want to land. So if you're landing a spot, make sure that you know that where you want to land is where you want to go. Now, the hard part is that you have to understand where a lot of these locations are. So let's say you're running with a teammate that happens to land here all the time. Well, it's probably important that you realize, well, a fallback, maybe I land on these bins if there's 6 teams here located, right? Or maybe you both decide, okay, option F is that we're going to go towards the cave that I just went through, and then we'll come third this location here. Another popular option is perhaps you land in this location here, and then you third afterwards. But there's always loot and always the ability to have a good drop. So make sure you drop quickly, You drop effectively within reason between 600, 700 meters. Again, somebody's going to give me a more precise, accurate from whatever, you know, Apex Reddit, and it's completely understandable, I know, but at least that you're searching for it. That's the goal of this video, is that you're going forth and you're understanding, hey, this is how I need to drop and this is what I need to do. Because trust me, even playing at Master, Pred, you know, even tournaments, that number has been a pretty good solid range and be able to get you there at least earlier to the fight because you know exactly where you're going and where you're landing. So as long as you use general marker, you keep practicing the drops, that's going to be very effective. So what we're going to do is I'm going to showcase the next map, Olympus. We're going to talk about some of these spots and where you're always guaranteed loot. Now in this example, we're going to talk about what happens if you drop really hot. Specifically an area is perfect. Look at this on Bonsai. And let's say you spam F and just like everyone else, everyone lands at the exact same moment down below. If you land with your first option, knowing that there's going to be a gun located here and everyone hits it, one thing you can do is hit geometry to expedite your fall. This can help a bit. Now the downside of this is even if you land here, you may only get one gun by the time that somebody else lands. So now you're really fighting for whatever option you have here because maybe the teammates landed over this option and you have to clutch out with whatever guns you have. Now let's say you don't feel comfortable with the All-Star or perhaps the Alternator. This is my advice to always practice with those loadouts because trust me, it's always going to be the loadouts that you feel the most uncomfortable with. See how we're getting like the worst loadouts here that you're always going to have to fight with in these unfortunate circumstances. You're going to have to be able to clutch out and feel confident at least to be able to win the fight. So immediately when you drop, you should understand where you need to go for cover and how to minimize where you're fighting. Most individuals where they drop is they start just running at somebody, but they're out in the open, which means you could get shot from here, get shot from here. And you need to play at the minute you drop intelligently. You need to look for information and look for ways to have your backside cleared. And even if your teammates are nearby, and maybe if they're not, decide I'm going to leave and reposition, or I need to not drop here at all, and let's say we drop to the other location down below over here. So in this location over here, let's say that you realize that there was about, let's give or take 8 teams located there. I've seen that happen before. It's been very psychotic, right? But you decided to take the lesser of two evils, and you decided to land here instead. You found your loadout, and what's the first thing you're able to do? Go push the fight. Every single second matters as you're pushing in. Let's say you found yourself a Wingman R99, you have yourself an ideal loadout. There's nothing better that you can have than that. Now their option, if you do have Loba, which is why I kept running around as her, is to lower your time and grab whatever loot that you have in the area. Look for what exactly you want to pretty much win, get your heals, and just run in. But you need to be fast. You need to decide, am I going to fight here or am I going to run away? Now, the other question you should be asking yourself that if you dropped hot and you run away, why are you dropping hot to begin with? So I would highly recommend that you drop more safe instead of dropping hot and expecting to always run away. If your first instinct is to, oh no, I don't have what I need to run away, drop nearby, drop Icarus, drop Orbital Cannon. Yes, it's further away because you get the loadout that you very much need. And let's say that it is contested. Well, most of the time it's only going to be contested by 2 squads, right? You got a squad that's going to take the north side and one's going to take the south side. And then also, again, know where your loadout is going to be potentially located. Inside buildings, maybe never fight for the bins. Unless, like we know, in certain locations where bins can actually secure you loot. So you got to think about those things. Those things are very, very important as you're running around. You don't want to necessarily drop, and I've seen teams do this, and it always surprises me. They drop here, and then they get upset and complain there's no loot. Well, yeah, so you literally have a team of 3 that all landed here, and you have 1 gun. You need to drop where it's logical, where you know that you're going to find enough loadout. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to jump cut to a spot that we were talking about at Olympus at the start from the prior location, and we're going to discuss why X, Y, and Z spawns there. So let's cut. So now we're located here. Remember how I mentioned that there's always a sniper here? Here they are. There's the marksman weapons. Very, very high probability that they're going to drop here. Almost 100% drop rate that they're going to be here. But if you happen to be a player that's looking for that specific loadout, then this is going to be the site for you. Look at all these marksman loadouts here. Perfect for any player who happens to enjoy some range. Now, let's ask a question that if you happen to drop here and you get upset, oh no, there's only snipers here. Well, oops, berries. Who's surprised that anything was located here? So be smart about where you drop. You're always going to have a positive drop experience if you know what to expect. If you're dropping with multiple teams here, perhaps if you're not the first one that's going to drop there and not be able to get the loadout, then it might be smart as a jump master to peel away for your squad. If you decide not to peel away for your squad, don't be surprised if you don't win or clutch out because you're late. And if you're late, try to figure out why you're late. Are you dropping too late? Did you step away from the keyboard? Are you tabbed out? One other setting I recommend heavily when people are like to tab out all the time is make sure to put sound in the background so you know you can hear the drop ship ship in the background. So you know you can hear the drop. So you know you can hear the drop ship in the background. You know, okay, I need to play safe. I need to hop back in. Now, what we're going to do, let's talk about this next and last final tip I want to talk about when it comes to looting. And of course, we'll talk about loot patterns and wrap up the video. All right, let us say you have psychopathic tendencies. You enjoy being hurt and you need therapy like myself. What you do is you drop World's Edge and you drop Hot every single time regardless of anybody telling you otherwise, and you load it as Wraith. If this sounds like you, just like me, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about if you refuse to land safe. Even if you're late for just a few seconds, and you, no matter what, says, you know what, I'm going to drop and I deserve to win in Apex Legends. Let's talk about how you can kind of do that. Well, we know where guns are located here, right? We know there's a gun located here, here, and then between every single one of these crevices, left side, right side, right side, on that side, boom, 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 that there are guns and loadouts located there. Let's say half the lobby is dropping here because that's what they do. Look, welcome to Fragment. They're either going to go to that streamer building or go to the streamer building. Let's say up top here, everyone decided to drop here. It's very common that that's where to happen. There's only enough guns for probably about a few individuals there. But let's say that you need to drop here. You know there's going to be guns located there, and there's always loadouts here. And every single one of the floors. Predictable. Now the downside of doing this is if you go through it, you may not find anything. Look how long it took us to find something. Remember, if you drop here and you get upset because you didn't find anything, you know the probability of how that's supposed to look. Now, it is your responsibility to maybe land near where you see that there might be loot, maybe located there, maybe you land located here, maybe you let them battle it out on the roof, and information is key. So let's say we land on the bottom here, but we get a Mozambique. If you're not comfortable with a Mozambique, you better become very comfortable with it, because now if they're fighting up top, you need to clutch out with whatever you got, because you need to take their resources, because their resources would include all the following guns located here, and I promise you if they're battling it out, that you can definitely third and have the upper hand on those opponents. But there's not enough guns for, let's say, I don't know, give or take 10 teams here. It's just, this is not possible, not logical. So if you are that type of person that would like to drop there, just understand where stuff is located and realize that you may not always clutch out. But the plus side is that this can help you get your 20 eliminations in a game, right? Very, very positive, very good for what you're looking for. Maybe a little harder to get your 4K damage because that sometimes happens in late game, especially if everyone has white armors, is what you're seeing here, located obviously in the most, you know, I'm calling myself out because of obviously of what it is. It just makes sense. So I have to make logic based on my own brain sometimes. So excuse me for that. Now, if we continue onwards, let's talk about a loot pattern, a loot path, right? Let's say you're not going to be insane in the membrane just for just a moment, and you're not dropping streamer building. Let's say you wanted to have a logical loot path before you went into the chaos. Well, a logical loot path, let's just pick a no-name over here, because maybe you want a third, for example. I've showcased this many times on stream, and we've talked about it. Maybe you don't want to necessarily land right in the action because you know a team's going to land here. Sometimes a building per person is not a bad thing. One person lands here, one person lands here, one person lands here. Now, if multiple people land on your location, just understand that whenever your teammate comes over, that they're going to be more kitted than the people that are located in this building, most of the time. So you have to understand that while it may be smart to dogpile onto somebody, sometimes it doesn't necessarily pull out ahead. Trust me, I've had teams that try to land on me, and then all of a sudden they pay for it. But it could counteract the same way. So let's talk about a loot path. Let us say, for example, you were to drop in this building located here, and you wanted to drop immediately. Well, you know there's going to be loot here on the left and then the right, and then you're going to pick up this here. And then what we could do is you come across here and then hit the bin. Located here. You can use your legend utility just for the start, just to speed up the weapon rotation. And you want to move up top. Your teammate already landed in the center to grab the stuff. You grab this, and then you grab this, and then boom, you should be ready to fight. Your teammate could have had an opposite type of loot pattern. Let's say instead they landed in this building, right? If they landed in this building, let's go ahead and drop all our stuff and just kind of showcase the amount of loot that you could possibly get from the scenario. Because this is where we're going to wrap up in today's video. I think that it's unfortunate that I put this at the end, but it's also one of the most important parts. Boom, you got yourself a flatline, got yourself a Volt. That's very, very amazing. Very great loadout. Then you hit this spot over here. Move in. See yourself at 30-30 if you want a little bit of range. And then you can hit the bins in the center. Boom, you're done. Or, if your teammate already hit the bins in the center, you can hit the little building right here just to split the loot. And then boom, your loot path is ready. So what is the first thing you're going to do? Time to go third party. The reason why is because this is not necessarily a high tier loot area, but Fragment East and Fragment West definitely have a bit better loot compared to No Name. Or let's say you wanted to go Lookout because it was a team that definitely contested there. But your loot pattern from what you had is definitely going to be positive compared to somebody that's in a fight already utilizing resources. So we showcase what that looks like. So remember to always have a good drop. Let's do a recap of what we've learned today. Now, if we're just we'll just stay here in the open. Let's recap. Number 1, be confident of the area you want to take. If you're not going to be confident with it, I promise you somebody's going to be a lot more dominant and take the spot from you. Number 2, know where loadouts are going to be located. Most of the time in buildings, you'll find them in segmented areas. Just as we just go into this building, you'll see them in little areas here, and they're always going to be pretty much the same. Now, they may not always give you a gun. There's a good example right there. But you know that something should be located on this floor for the most part. Now, you have your utility if you do need to get away. That's very important. That's what we discussed earlier. Have an option B. Don't always go with option A and then say, I don't know what to do, I'm in big trouble. Have option B. If somebody contests you here and you don't get a loadout, perhaps immediately the first thing you do is you queue up to this area and say, see you later, I'm going in here as my alternate plan. If your alternate plan still doesn't pass through, have an option C. Option C would be this floor. Now, this isn't bad because let's say if a team did land nearby and you realize that 2 people landed here and 1 landed here, this building may be free most of the time. Now, most of the time, the individuals will start from the bottom floor and work their way up. So that's why I say have a clean option B. C and D. Let's say D was the fact that you saw 4 or 5 or 6, 7, 8 teams land here. Well, looks like we're going to No Name and we're going to go for option Z. Option Z would be the final option in which we do. And also understanding that there are some locations located as well on the recap that we have of specific items and loot. And then I promise you, again, if you have the insane energy of always want to land the same spot, don't get upset. It's the unfortunate reality that we all put ourselves in, is that you're going to run into some RNG, but I promise you then at returns, when you're confident with the loadout, you're confident with your gun, that you can definitely pull pretty far ahead. Just make sure you use your legend utility. Make sure you're looking for information. The information you're looking for is how many opponents do I believe are above me? How many teams are located in this building? If there's 10, your probability is going to drop. If there's only 1, let's keep going through the building. My probability is pretty high on survival, and I will definitely continue to fight if that's your intention to fight. If your intention is not to drop hot, then again, make sure that you find a different location and have a positive loot pattern. You should be acting like a speedrunner, looking for as much loot as humanly possible to get to the fight. When every pro player, this is what we'll end on, tells you to get to the fight, when the unfortunate part of playing a battle royale is when you're looting and what you're doing here, trying to get as much loot as humanly possible, you spend 5 minutes getting into a queue, queuing up to the load screens, dropping, and then you spend another 7 minutes getting loot, and then you have one good fight. Expedite that by never window shopping. Don't take your time looting. This is not looting simulator. This is a battle royale. Your intention is to win, not to loot. If you wanted to loot, then I guess you go to Walmart and enjoy window shopping there, if that's definitely your preferred preference. But here in Apex Legends, I encourage everybody to go out and fight, and I'm very, very confident after you watch this video and you get into fights, I know that you can win. I know that you can win. And you can probably do this way better than I ever could, to be honest. That's why I make this content, why I make these videos, because I'm that much a firm believer people who watch this content can definitely do a lot more and provide a lot more information. As long as I inspired you today to improve your loot patterns, improve how you drop, then I feel like I did at least what I'm supposed to do today. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.